and they're doing the ultrasound. And I was so focused on just making sure that the baby was okay due to the spotting. And I think the doctor knew, I was just like, it's okay. The baby's okay. You hear the heartbeat. And so we spend the time listening to the heartbeat, the whole thing, of the baby. And then she's like, okay, now there's another baby.
You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, where you'll gain the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to erase the unknowns, feel in control, and have an even better birth, no matter how you deliver. My name is Liesl Teen, mom of two, practicing labor and delivery nurse, and your host. From over 8 years and counting of working at the bedside, I know that knowledge is the key to an even better birth. So tune in each week to learn about all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum from me, a labor and delivery nurse that's seen it all. And now let's get into this week's episode. Welcome back to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast. This week, I have a birth story for you guys, and it's not just any birth story. It is a twin birth story. I haven't had a twin birth story on the podcast in quite a while. So when Katie reached out to us, I was like, oh, yeah, let's do a twin birth story. I haven't heard one of those in a while. I haven't taken care of a patient who's had twins in a while. So I was really feeling the twins. This week. Katie did such an amazing job telling her story, and really wanted to come on here because one thing she said at the end of her episode really stuck with me. And that was that when she was pregnant with her twins, she struggled finding twin birth stories. And she just really, really, really wanted to find as many people as she could to talk to about their experience, with twins, and she just really struggled too. So she wanted to come on here and just tell her story for any other twin moms out there, because she just really saw the value in connecting with moms who are other twin moms. You can hear about other people's experiences and really, kind of feel like you have a grasp on that, because it really is a much different experience having two babies come out of you, whether it's your vagina or whether it's your belly from a C-section, than one. Yeah. So Katie came on the podcast today and we talked about the birth of her twins. And guess what? She had a surprise gender. So I'm not going to tell you what gender they are, but I told her at the beginning too, don't say it until the very end, until they come out. So it's going to be a surprise for you guys too. But she had a really, really great story. I'm excited to share it with you guys this week. So without further ado, let's get into the birth of Katie's twins. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're doing a birth story today, right? That's right. You're not an expert, right? Or you're an expert on your own birth, but we're talking about birth today, right?
We are. Twin birth.
Woohoo! I'm so excited. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your family, where you're from, anything at all you want to share.
Sure. My name is Katie. I'm from New Jersey. I've been with my husband, Justin, since we met in 2011. It's been a while. We met in college and we were together for a long time, got married back in 2019, and then decided I think we're ready to try to have one baby was the initial plan. And we were surprised with two. Conceived end of 2021. It's been a wild ride since then.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dive in. So tell me, 2021. So I guess we said it was the end of 2021?
We conceived right at the end of 2021. Yeah.
Okay. So you were still, that was still COVID time.
There were definitely some COVID-ish precautions still in place, which is actually one of the main reasons that I think led me to your birth course, because the hospital that I delivered at still really wasn't doing any type of courses like they used to due to COVID. And I was seeking other avenues to learn about, what was available to me and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we conceived back in 2021, and we were very fortunate to conceive very early in trying. So something I was just always nervous about because, you never know how long it's going to take. And I had been on birth control for a very long time, 10 plus years kind of going into this. And I decided that I wanted, even before we were ready to start trying, I wanted to come off of it. I probably came off of it about a little less than a year before we conceived, but I wanted to come off of it before we started trying, just so I can make sure my body like re-regulated itself. I wasn't sure like how that was going to look because I had barely even gotten a period on the pill. So I had no idea. I totally forgot what it was like to have to even have a period. So fortunately, I came off the pill and my body re-regulated immediately. It was back in a very normal cycle, like right away. And so I just started tracking it just to get familiar with my cycle. And then when we were ready to start trying, it happened in like 2 months. It was very quick.
It's great.
So yeah, we were very, very, very fortunate for that. Definitely surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be so quick for us. And then even more surprised when we found out there were two.
I know. I love twin birth stories because I love asking people that question. I want to hear what happened when you found out you were pregnant because I love that part too. But I love hearing like when you find out you're having twins.
It was honestly one of the most wild experiences of my life. So the night I decided to take a pregnancy test, I was definitely before my missed period, but we had a wedding. It was a Friday evening. We had a wedding the next day. It was like a week before Thanksgiving. And I knew we were trying, and I felt like I was using the Flow app, and I was like, I really, we did it when I ovulated per the app, and I'm going to just test to make sure because I don't want to drink alcohol at the wedding. Not expecting anything to come of it, but I was just kind of like, I'm just going to test because I have the wedding tomorrow. My husband was the best man in this wedding, so he was like all nervous getting his speech ready the night before, and I just sporadically took it, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. That was really fast, and I just blurted it out to him. It was nothing fancy. I was very like shocked, and we were just shocked. But I needed someone else to know that I couldn't drink alcohol at the wedding. I couldn't like surprise him in that way, just the nature of the timing and everything, but really exciting. So I had scheduled my first appointment with my OBGYN, probably went there, was just shy of 8 weeks pregnant, maybe like 7 to 8 weeks. And the couple days leading up to when I had my appointment, I started spotting, and I was getting nervous, and I had called, and they were like, it was like, you're coming in like tomorrow. Like, we can probably just wait till tomorrow. It's probably okay. And so I was just a little nervous. It was like 1 or 2 days before. It was nothing crazy, but I was like, oh no. So we went in, and they're doing the ultrasound. And I was so focused on just making sure that the baby was okay due to the spotting. Like, and I think the doctor knew, like, I was just like, it's okay. The baby's okay. Like, you hear the heartbeat. And so we spend the time like listening to the heartbeat, the whole thing, like, of the baby. And then she's like, okay, now there's another baby. And my husband was with me, fortunately, and we had our masks on because COVID. And we just like looked at each other like bug-eyed, like, no. I was just like, what? I literally couldn't even comprehend that's what she was like. I was went through like, it was like 5-10 minutes we spent focused on the one baby. So I was just like flabbergasted. It was just shocking that happened. And I kind of feel like we did it to ourselves. My husband and I are big fans of Friends.
Yes. Yes. Love Friends.
We're driving to the doctor. We're joking about the episode where Monica and Chandler are having their adopted baby being born, and they were like, we only ordered one. And we were joking about that scene in the car on the way to the doctor appointment. I was like, will this on ourselves? Like, what just happened? So it was just so wild. We were in shock for months, honestly. I literally think it took me like halfway through my pregnancy to like really comprehend that was happening. And it was interesting because, so when we first found out it was twins, it was very clear already at that 7-8 week mark that there were 2 sacs, 2 placentas. Okay. So we were already feeling, at that point, I didn't know much about all the different types of twin pregnancies. And I was like, I have to learn everything. I have to understand what just happened. So at that point, we decided that we knew even before we conceived that we wanted to be surprised with the gender of the baby.
Ooh.
But when I got the opportunity to figure out, like, okay, are they identical or fraternal? I was like, I want to know that, because I wanted to understand, like, oh, was this like a hereditary thing that I didn't know was in my gene pool, or was this just like a fluky thing that just happened to us? So we did find that out at our anatomy scan appointment, and we were kind of assuming they were fraternal based on the two sacs, two placentas. Very rarely does it happen that those are identical twins, but we ended up with identical twins, which made more sense. They're not in our gene pool at all. So it was kind of shocking. So then we knew, okay, we're having two of the same gender, and then we still kept it a surprise till the very end. So,
oh my gosh, that's so fun though that you were able to do that, and I cannot believe that you said that they were identical. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's funny because I started seeing, just due to the nature of, like, okay, you're the twin pregnancy, you're automatically high risk, even though there was no other underlying things that made me such. But so I started going to the maternal fetal medicine specialist. Like, I went there once a month anyway, just for the thoroughness, just to check everything with the two babies. And it was that doctor that actually explained to me, they're possible there's identical. It doesn't happen often, but if the egg splits early enough, it's possible. So I was like, I was thinking that they were paternal, and I was like, there's a possibility it could be a boy and a girl. And it was not that. So, but really felt fortunate because it was the lowest risk of the twin pregnancy types. Yeah. I was very grateful that was our situation, with just, having it be kind of like a wild thing that we were not expecting.
Yes, totally. Well, you haven't said if you had boys or girls, so save it. Okay. We're going to save it for our listeners until the very end. So we are all surprised with you when you tell us what came out, because obviously we know now it's both of the same gender. But no, that is crazy. So tell me, in first trimester, a little bit early in the second trimester, I know that sometimes twin moms, they are a little bit more sick. They feel a little more pregnant than like the average pregnant person, if that even makes sense. But how was your pregnancy in terms of symptoms?
So the first half of my pregnancy was really challenging. And it was my first and only pregnancy so far. So I don't have a frame of reference to say whether it's because my symptoms were, amplified because there were two babies. I think it's possible, because I do think the hormone levels are even higher.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely contributed to the level of nausea I had. I would say that first trimester, I actually ended up losing weight. I was nauseous like probably 80% of the day, on a day to day. I didn't get, sick every day, but maybe like once a week, I would end up, needing to excuse myself to go to the bathroom and have a little moment. But it was kind of interesting. I know it's called morning sickness. I actually felt the least nauseous right when I woke up. It was worse for me at the end of the day. And I ended up having no appetite. I was bad. I just felt like I didn't want to eat anything. I just was I just gotta do what I need to do to make sure I'm just staying alive and keeping the babies alive. It was the bare minimum. And I remember every time I went to every doctor appointment, I was freaking out. I was like, I'm losing weight. Are the babies okay? Are they okay? I'm trying to eat. But they assured me they were growing properly throughout that whole first trimester, because I was monitored frequently. I had ultrasounds all the time, which I know not a lot of people do that. So it was so normal to me to see them so frequently and have them measured so frequently. But it was rough. But I would say right at the end, in just the beginning of the second trimester, the nausea definitely calmed down, and I was starting to feel like I could eat more. Definitely had a lot of aversions to things, but not really any cravings. I just had more aversions. But I was able to start to eat more, and then it was probably midway, a little past the 20-week mark, my stomach exploded. I wasn't showing even at 18 weeks, with the twins. I was and I got all these books to read about multiple pregnancies, and sometimes they give you like ranges of what you're supposed to be gaining. And I was freaking out because I was like not there at all. I was like, you can't even tell I'm pregnant and there's 2 babies in here, and like, are they okay? I was worried about it the whole time, but it was
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, let's go past all of the yuckiness symptoms and let's talk about a little further into your pregnancy, 2nd trimester, 3rd trimester. And then tell us about that day that, I don't know what happened. You tell us what happened.
Well, I do want to,
or C-section or whatever.
I had a really, I ended up in the 2nd trimester right around when I was 16 weeks pregnant. I ended up having really, really severe pain in my abdomen.
Oh.
I was very scared, and I tried to like, tough it out. I was trying not to like overreact to little things. I had all the round ligament pain and all that stuff. And I was like, maybe it's just another one of those pains and it'll go away. And it just didn't go away. And I was in contact with my doctors throughout like, the 24 to 36 hours that I was having this pain. It got to the point where they were like, I think you need to go to the hospital. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It was the middle of the night one night when my husband and I, we go to the hospital, and it was hard because they didn't want to give me any kind of scan because I was 16 weeks pregnant. So they were trying to like figure out what could be wrong via an ultrasound. So I had a tech working on my abdomen for a really long time, essentially like almost measuring every organ they possibly could in my abdomen via the ultrasound and checking all this stuff. But, they weren't really, I couldn't really tell what was going on, but both babies were fine in the ultrasound, but I was just in a lot of pain. It's kind of like, it's your appendix, maybe it's your ovary, whatever it was. So after they did the ultrasound, they came back and they were like, we think that you have an ovarian torsion where like three like flips, and that it was like maybe losing circulation and whatever. And they were like, we need to go in and fix it. And I was like, what do you mean you need to go in and fix it? Like, he was like, you need to operate. You could lose your ovary. And I was like, well, what about the babies? Like, how am I supposed to have an operation? Like, I'm pregnant. Like, what do you mean? And he was like, the baby's going to be okay if you're not okay. And my OBGYN was already on her way to come to perform the operation. So this was at like 5 or 6 in the morning. So
how scary.
It was very obviously it was very stressful. Like, we were very worried. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have anesthesia. Like, the 16-week embryos are going to have anesthesia. Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So it was wild. Because, when you find out you're pregnant with twins, I feel like I was so worried about like preterm labor, NICU. And like, I wasn't worried about anything happening like that. So it really caught me off guard, obviously.
I was going to say, I'm about to look up the stat for how many pregnant women have surgery during their pregnancies, because I feel like that's pretty darn uncommon.
Right. I think it was.
Want to learn more about epidural use during birth? Whether you're team epidural all the way or maybe you aren't so sure yet, I encourage everyone to learn about this medical pain intervention, and that's why I created the free Epidural Birth Prep Pack. Inside, you'll find printable resources to help you learn more about epidurals and help you prepare for your birth. It includes the Epidural Basics Guide, which is a quick primer on epidurals so that you know a little bit about what to expect when the time comes, our super popular hospital bag checklist so that you know your hospital bag is stocked with everything you need for that big day. You'll get traditional and visual birth plan templates to help you think through all the questions related to your birth and gain the sense of control that you deserve. And finally, you'll get a 3rd trimester to-do list to feel completely at ease heading into labor, knowing you've checked every box. To start learning more for your even better birth, simply head on over to mommylabornurse.com/epidural pack. That's mommylabornurse.com/epidural pack to access your free epidural prep pack today.
So we're getting ready for the surgery. 2 of the doctors at my practice came because one came to do the surgery and one came to monitor the babies. And so I go in for surgery, and then I come out and I'm still under sedation, and they tell my husband, like, her ovary was fine. Wasn't ovary. I ended up having like this giant fibroid attached to my uterus via like I guess like a stem almost, which was better. And I think it ended up kind of dying I think the
Oh,
baby were hogging all the blood flow going. And it must have been something that I had there that I didn't know I had a fibroid.
yeah.
And I actually think they mistook it for my ovary because it was that large. It was very large. And they went in laparoscopically to fix the ovary, but then they ended up having to do a minor cesarean cut in that spot, not a full cesarean cut, but kind of like in that same spot where you have the C-section cut to get the fibroid because it was so large.
Wow.
And I think when it was happening, they called in like the head of the gynecological department of the hospital. Like, I think they were like, should we take it out or should we not? Because the risk was that if they removed it, the uterus could have hemorrhaged because it was attacked. So it was like quite the endeavor, but it was successful. And the baby's heart rates came right back up after I had the anesthesia. And the week after I had the surgery, I went back to my doctor like a couple times that week to monitor the heart rates of the babies. That was really all we could do. And everything was fine. Aside from me having to recover from an abdominal surgery while I was 16 weeks pregnant. And I was like, well, I'm not taking these painkillers. I already had anesthesia. Like, I was like, no. So that was wild. It was really scary. And it probably took me like a full month to heal from that. But once I got through that, then the pregnancy was smooth sailing.
Okay, well, that's good. I was about to be like, what's next?
No. That was enough. That's enough. But after I kind of was like, oh, like they're going to probably say I need to have a C-section because I already have this issue with my uterus and this cut. And I was like, I was in the mindset that I would have done whatever kind of birth I needed to do to make sure the babies would get out safely. But so as I progressed through the pregnancy, I really was totally fine. By the end, I just felt really, really large and a little uncomfortable, but I felt okay for the most part. So I can't complain. I would say like the third trimester was almost easier than the first two with everything that went on because I was fully recovered and all that.
Well, definitely less. Well, I hope, less eventful than those trimesters. So
it was crazy. But I'm very grateful for all the doctors and the medical professionals that were able to handle it, and it was successful. So really for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned preterm labor before and just being concerned about that. And preterm labor is something that twin moms often have to deal with. So what gestation were we at when we are having these babies?
So the plan was that as long as babies both were head down and there was no other things kind of going on, that I could go for a vaginal delivery. So I was like, I'm going to go for it. But they did kind of say, like, we're going to induce you at 38 weeks if you don't go naturally before that, just because I was, you get so big. And I think that's kind of common practice with most twin births. So I was totally okay with that. So it's funny because my 40-week due date was my birthday. But so the 38, was fine. But it was kind of funny that if I was a singleton baby, we could have had the same birthday.
That's funny.
So I was feeling like so great. And the last couple weeks, or the last 2 weeks leading up to the 38-week induction date, they had me going for like the stress tests and all that. And there was no sign that I was close to going into labor. Like nothing was open, nothing was a face. Like there was no sign. So I was like, I'm gonna make it to the induction date. Like no problem. Which was like a Monday night.
Okay.
So the Saturday before, I was at my neighbor's house. They were having a barbecue and we were all joking around like, oh, you're gonna go into labor, you're gonna go into labor. I was like, no way, I'm making it to Monday. Like I'm gonna make it to Monday. It's fine. And I said to my husband, I was like, make sure, just in case, I was like, you can't drink too much because we could be going to the hospital. You just never know. But so that night around like 1 a.m., I got up and I was like, I thought I like leaked a little pee. I was like, something's happening. And I went to go to the bathroom. I was like, did I pee? Did I not? And I was like, I think the water might be breaking. It wasn't like a big gush. And I was like, it's just like kind of like that small trickle. And I was like, I think the water just broke.
Ooh.
All my doctor, and she was like, yeah, that sounds like your water. Like, you should just go to the hospital, because they weren't going to wait for me to like have contractions just because I was high risk because of what happened. They were like, if your water broke, just go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, okay, so now it's another like 2 a.m. trip. We're going to the hospital in the middle of the night. And that's when I get there, and they kind of almost, I wasn't showing signs of any contractions. I wasn't dilated like at all, like nothing. But they started me on Pitocin. It was almost like they just started the induction 36 hours early, because I was scheduled to be there Monday night, and we kind of just went through the same process just because the water had broke, which they confirmed that did happen. Well, I should say the baby A's water. I guess I should.
Okay.
So they started me on Pitocin, and I progressed extremely slowly. I ended up doing 3 rounds. I think like they did where they would do kind of like every 30 to 60 minutes, they would up it.
Yeah.
And then the max. And then I'd come off for like an hour or two, like reset because it was so like I went 30 hours almost.
Wow.
Because I did start having, once the Pitocin started kicking in, I did start having some contractions. So probably we got to the hospital, like 2 a.m. Probably by like the morning time, I was feeling contractions. But I waited at the epidural, and I took your epidural course because I was so set. I was like, okay, I really think I'm going to hopefully have a vaginal birth. But I was very much like, but I have to get the epidural, because my worst fear was if I had one baby vaginally and then something went wrong and I needed to have this baby cesarean, and then they would have to put me under because I don't have it. And my biggest concern was like, I just want to make sure I'm awake and there. Yeah. So I was like, go, I'm definitely doing the epidural. But I did wait because like I wanted to move a little bit as much as I could. I was so heavily monitored though with the, I had a monitor on me and then a monitor on the baby. Like I really couldn't move much anyway, but like I wanted to be able to go to the bathroom. So I waited to get the epidural. I want to say till like mid to late afternoon Sunday. So I was in labor like almost 12, 13 hours, but I was maybe like 3 centimeters dilated. Like I was moving so slow.
Yeah.
So I got the epidural at that point, hoping to get some sleep, because I really didn't sleep because I'm just like, they're taking my blood pressure like every 15 minutes. Like I just was.
It's annoying. I know.
Just because I was high, I was so heavily monitored, which is a thing, but it was just not something that I couldn't rest. And that's why I was like, I'll just get the epidural now. So then overnight, Sunday night into Monday morning was when I started to use the peanut ball. And every 30 minutes, the night nurse would come in and we would switch the position of the peanut ball and like to try to progress to help. And I think it helped. Then Monday morning of like 5 or 6 a.m., 7 a.m., I was finally fully dilated. It took a long time. It is not just a really long
time, but hey, a long time. But hey, you know what? First pregnancy, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're having twins or not. Sometimes it can take that long. And that's why because you took the birth courses, but I say that to people in the birth courses, like sometimes it just takes a long time, and just be prepared for it to be taking a long time, because if it so happens that it doesn't, then hey, you exceeded your expectations there, but it can.
Right. Yeah. So the thing that happened, which was not the greatest, was both babies were head down almost the entire second half of my pregnancy. Like the whole, right when I hit 10 centimeters, baby B went transverse.
Oh, baby B.
Like, oh no. Like I was like, my worst fear is having one vaginally, one C-section. Like I was like, oh my God. So my doctor was like, it's fine. We're just going to have the first baby, and then baby's going to have all this room, and baby's going to come head down, and it'll be fine. Like, let's just go. We'll just go have this first baby, and don't worry about it yet. Yeah. Like, okay. So now they're wheeling me from the labor delivery room, they wheeled me into an operating room just because there was that risk that I was going to need a C-section. So that's where I delivered. So we get there and we start doing the whole thing. And it was very humbling for me. There was a lot of people in there, obviously, the team of doctors for me, the anesthesiologist, the nurses for each baby ready. Like, it was a lot. And then, I don't think, obviously, twin births are not as common. So they asked me, like, is it okay? Like, what if 2 nursing students, like, are in here? And I was like, yes, of course. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it's like a crowd. And I was like, oh, boy. So we start doing it. We start pushing. And it was like 20 minutes went by. I was just like, to my doctor, I was like, am I doing it? Is it working? Is it happening? And she's like, do you want to see? I was like, yeah, I want to see. Yelled out the floor-length mirror. I totally disregarded my husband. I was like, sorry if you didn't want to see this, but like, I need to see what's going on. I was a little people that I think it helped me, when they lowered the epidural so that I could feel the contraction. And when I was pushing, if I saw like the baby crowning, I think I held on that little bit longer.
Yeah.
It really helped me. But my poor husband, I think it's like embedded in his brain.
You know what? It's okay. It's okay. He's not the one pushing out the baby. So if the mirror helps you, it's well worth it.
It really helped. And it wasn't something I really thought about, honestly, like throughout my pregnancy. But it was offered to me and I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah. And it was great. It really helped me a lot. So I pushed. It was a while, probably like 90 minutes, 2 hours, like a while. And then we had the first baby. So that was great. I got to hold her immediately. My husband got to cut me.
I was going to say, what is it?
Yeah, and it was a girl. So it's funny. I really didn't think they were girls my whole pregnancy. So
really,
my husband did, but I just was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just had no idea. But my gut was like, I feel like they're boys, but I was totally wrong. They were girls. So it was a girl. So the second baby was a girl, which she was still in my belly, but so it was so great. We got to have like the moment with her, and then they took her away, and then it was like, okay, let's go. It's the next baby. And I was like, can I have some? I was like, can I have some water? Like, I was like so thirsty, and at that point I hadn't eaten or drank in a while, and it was so hard. I felt, the anesthesiologist felt so bad. She was like, I'm really sorry, like, I can't give you any water. We still don't know what's happening with the second baby yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, I just had a baby. I just want to see her. But I was like, oh, I understand. Okay. I was just like, you're in that moment. I was just like, I just like was like, a mess. So baby B was still transverse. And my doctor was like, let's wait like a couple minutes. Let's see if she like kind of comes down and turns and all this stuff. So we waited about like 20, 30 minutes, and she did, but she came down with her arms out like she was going to dive.
Oh.
Like in front of her head. So my doctor's like,
Sweet girl.
I can't deliver her this way either. So I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
So at this point, it had been like at least 45 minutes to an hour since I already had the first baby. And I think they were originally like waiting, thinking it would maybe be faster, but then they ended up taking her to clean her up at that point. But she made it back into the room, soundly resting in her bassinet while still working on baby B. So my doctor was like, okay, I'm going to attempt to do this. If you're okay with it, it's going to hurt, but like, we might be able to do this. She's like, I can reach in there and push your arms back. And I was like, do that. I don't want to have a C-section. Like, do that. And it was definitely the most painful part of my entire labor process, that her kind of reaching far, like, I mean, I got to watch it in the mirror, unfortunately, and it was like elbow deep, like push those arms back, but it was successful. And I would have done that every time before having to have a C-section after the vaginal birth. So I was really fortunate that that also worked.
All right, the sound of that heartbeat means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. This one says, I just wanted to say thank you again for your natural birth course. I had my second baby a few months ago and looked over the course again before my due date. I successfully had a natural delivery with my first and second. The nurses all complimented me on my abilities to breathe and relax the best I could through contractions. My second labor started with my water breaking, just like my first, and only lasted 3.5 hours. Quickie. When my contractions started, they hit hard, and she put hard in all caps. Yeah, I feel that. They were back to back with maybe 15-second breaks in between. Oh, my nurses all told me I was born to birth babies. That is an awesome compliment. And just like go, I don't know where she delivered, but yes, I love the energy. I love the vibe that these nurses are putting out. So she said, my nurses all told me I was born to birth babies, but I think it's because of your course. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much for giving me the confidence to go natural. See, that is all we are trying to do here at Mommy Labor Nurse is give you that confidence that I already know you have in you. You know, we give you education, we empower you, but sometimes I feel like the confidence to do what you set out or what you want to do is sometimes the thing that people struggle with the most. So I want you to feel confident going into your birth and empowered and educated. But I love this birth of a baby. So thank you for sending it in. If you want to have an even better birth, just like this mama, head on over to mommylabornurse.com/courses to learn more about our 3 online on-demand birth classes.
And then I got, it's like, okay, now let's push all over again. So pushed for another 45 minutes.
Okay.
ABB was born over 2 hours later after baby A. It was a long time. Yep, vaginally.
Woohoo! That's awesome. Oh my goodness.
We did it. I was like, I can't believe we did it. I was like, it seemed so far-fetched to be able to have twins vaginally. I think technically they were considered full term over 37 weeks. We at that point we were like 37 and 6. And I just felt so grateful and excited and proud. And first when I was pregnant with twins, I was so scared. I know there's so many people out there that don't have this kind of experience. And when I was pregnant, I was so searching to listen to twin birth stories. I just want to learn what happens and kind of get educated, hear what people experience. And it's not often that I heard a story no stories are the same, but I felt like I wanted people to know that this is possible. And there were still challenges in my pregnancy and still challenges in the birth, but I had a wonderful doctor who really worked to do everything she could to have this successful vaginal birth with twins. And we did. And it was wild, but really, really exciting and very grateful that I was able to do it.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I'm glad you spoke on the importance of having a provider who is supportive of vaginal twin birth, because not that, there's some that are just absolutely not. Twins are only born via C-section, right? But it really does make a difference when you're working with a provider who is on the same page as you.
Yeah. And I think that if I said hey, I want a C-section, I think they would have accommodated that. And I was so I had to have this fibroid surgery. Is my uterus compromised? Is there I immediately was you're going to make me do a C-section, aren't you? And she was there's no other reason we can't try.
Yeah.
She's everything looks normal. I healed and, I had that at 16 weeks. So it was another 20 weeks went by.
Right.
I healed. There were no signs of anything hemorrhaging in my uterus. She's there's no reason we can't try this. And if you want to try it, we're going to do it. Okay, let's do it. So many of my peers and close friends were all having babies at the same time. Some people needed planned C-sections for so many valid reasons and breech and all these things, but it was kind of funny because of the 7 of my friends that had babies in the year that I had, I was the only one that had a vaginal birth and probably the least likely to have one. And I felt really proud that I was able to do that, really proud of my body, and just really, really excited that we got it done that way. And I had a great team. My husband was supportive, all the things, everything kind of fell into place. And both babies were born 6 pounds 4 ounces each.
I was just going to ask. I'm let me not forget about asking about the weight.
Yeah, they were pretty decent sized babies. And it's funny because I did not gain that much weight for a twin pregnancy. I always say to anybody that asks, I was my skinniest when I was pregnant. They just
Wow. Oh,
everything out of me. My arms got skinny, my legs got skinny. Like my maternity pants don't fit me now because
yeah.
my legs were so skinny when I was pregnant. So I didn't even, maybe 35 pounds.
Yeah.
It was all baby.
Yeah.
I was so worried about them, the whole pregnancy being like big enough, because I knew I was just like, oh, I just feel like I'm not gaining enough weight, and I'm worried that they're going to be too tiny and they're going to have to go to you, and I'm not going to make it full term, and all those things were not an issue, and feel very fortunate for that. So
That's amazing. Well, before we wrap up, I do want to ask about your postpartum experience and if you had any challenges or anything with them. It sounds like they didn't have to stay in the NICU or anything, so you don't have to stay any longer, but anything you want to share about your postpartum recovery?
sure, yeah. We went home pretty quickly. I wasn't cesarean, and
Yeah.
I was at the hospital a while because I was in labor for a long time, but we were home. We stayed maybe like 1 or 2 nights, and then we were home. It was like no big deal. I did tear a bit with baby number 2 because I think baby A, she was in my pelvis so long in labor, her head kind of pointed a little and came out a bit easier, but baby B was just perfectly rounded head. So she tore me up a bit. So that recovery was a little, I definitely, I think maybe like 2nd degree, 3rd degree, and needed some tending to in that department. So once I got through like those types of things recovering, it really settled into like, how do we manage 2 babies?
It's like, now we just have to take care of them. The hard part's over. Birth is over. Now we just have to raise 2 children.
Yeah, it was really hard. I can say it took me probably 6 months to fully come out of like the postpartum fog that I was in. I definitely experienced postpartum depression. I go to a postpartum therapist. I wish I started it sooner. I didn't start till maybe like 4 months postpartum, 3 months postpartum. I wish I did it sooner because the depression was hard. And I think for me, it's interesting. When I was pregnant, I actually feared the postpartum anxiety more than the depression. And I had no anxiety and all depression. And I actually feel like one of the biggest things that contributed to my depression, aside from coming into your new identity as a mom, was I kind of just felt like I didn't have the capacity and time to adequately bond with each baby. And I was really trying to always like be like, oh, did I hold this one as many minutes as I held this one today? And, obviously their needs are different at different points, but that really took a toll on me. Kind of just like I was just doing everything I could to keep them alive and fed and clean. And I couldn't enjoy those bonding moments just because I had to do everything twice. It took that much time, and I really struggled with that. And I was like, I'm missing it. I'm missing everything. Like, it's just one of those things that it's part of like the twin or multiples, It's funny. I went to like a twin mom support group in that initial period. I went to this center where I was getting some of the therapy sessions, and I said, it's kind of funny. I think I'm not anxious at all. Like, I don't sweat the small stuff, because I think if I spent any time overthinking those things, like I don't have time to think about if I'm overthinking something. I just have to make sure. And it actually, I felt like helped me in that way. Like, I'm worried about more of the bare minimum things, because it was so monopolizing. And obviously the sleep deprivation of twin life amplified all of those things. So I kind of feel like once we started getting a little more sleep on top of finally coming out of that fog, then it was like, okay, we got this. We could do this. And once we got past that 6-month mark, things got a lot easier for us. We found our rhythm and all. So that was it was really challenging, but I found the therapy helpful. And they were so great. Like, they were like, you can't come if you can't get childcare, just bring the babies and we can still have the session. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
and like it was, we really tried
Yeah.
to do that. And my doctor was supportive, and she had been the one that referred me and recommended me and
Yeah.
all that. So yeah, it was scary feeling, but yeah, got through it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, oftentimes when I hear moms talk about whether it's postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and they start therapy, sometimes it's like when you start therapy, you're like, oh my God, how long is this going to take for me to feel better? Like, I feel like it's still so far away. So what would you say was that time frame or like that turning point when you feel like, okay, I'm kind of a little bit out of the woods now?
So, like I said, I went for that 6-week postpartum checkup, and that was when my doctor was like, "Yeah, I really think you should consider talking to
Yeah.
somebody and all that." And I waited because I was hesitant because I was in my
As we all do. Yeah.
so I probably didn't get there for the first time till like 3.5, 4 months postpartum. Like, I
Yeah.
wish I went. I know that's why I say, I look back and I wish I called when I left, and made the
Yeah.
first, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I probably continued to go through like 9 to 10 months postpartum. I definitely felt a shift at that 6-month mark. I think
Okay.
it was a combination of the fact that I had been going for a couple months, and then I do think the sleep deprivation was a big factor in my ability to function and handle challenges better.
Yeah.
But I continued to go, and then when I hit like that 9, 10 month postpartum mark, I kind of was like, I think I'm good. And at that point,
Good.
I got work for a while. I went through, once I adjusted returning to work, like all those things. Like, I went back to work. Babies were like about 4.5 months postpartum. I was like old, like kind of
Yeah.
in that age. So it was still like longer than a lot of people get, but like still was
Yeah.
like a big adjustment. And so I kind of was adjusting to that new part of life, being the working mom. So
Yeah.
once I got comfortable with what I felt like my new identity as like a working twin mom,
Hmm.
and it slowly phased out of it. And now it's like we're rocking it with the two of us.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Oh, that's amazing. Very well said, too. Well, Katie, okay, forgive me, I can't do math. So, how old are the twins now?
They are about 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't know, 18 months, like that 15 to 8. I mean, two is two, right? But like that 15, 8 to like 20 month. Oh, it's so much fun. And like you have two of them. So, I'm sure your house is just.
It's chaos. But yeah, I mean, they're in that stage where they're just like, they're starting to talk a lot. They're learning
Yeah.
much, and they really feed off each other, which can be
Oh,
really, really
so
fun,
cute.
but it also can be really challenging. We have like
Okay.
fights, and it's,
Yeah.
but get to watch them really start to really having fun together,
Yeah.
which has been a real joy, because there's been a lot. I think also a good chunk of my postpartum depression was missing that feeling, like that bonding time. Like, I've never had just
Yeah.
one child.
Yeah.
That was a big challenge for me. Just that I felt like they were missing something and I was missing something. And but then I get to experience something like this where they're really having so much fun together. And I am grateful that I get, that experience, even though I never got the one-on-one bonding experience.
Yeah, very well said. Well, Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. This was fabulous story to add to our many birth stories that we have on the podcast, and a twin one at that. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me.
That was such a great story by Katie. Thank you so much again, Katie, for coming on and sharing the beautiful birth of your twin baby girls. Oh, I just love it. Next week on the podcast, we are doing an episode all about Black maternal health, because next week is Black Maternal Health Week. So next week, we are putting out an episode all about improving Black birthing journeys. We're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff. I had a couple guests come on. We had a nice conversation about all of the things out there that are currently being done to help improve outcomes and kind of where we are, like status quo. So I'm excited to share it with you guys. So be sure to stay tuned to that episode, same time, same place next week. Already feeling a little more confident about pregnancy, birth, and newborn life? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can continue to erase the unknowns and never miss an episode. And if you're looking for even more, Instagram is definitely where I hang out the most. Come join our community of more than 500,000 moms for birth education, tips, and solidarity. You can find me at mommy.labornurse. Check out today's show notes and a searchable library of every Mommy Labor Nurse podcast episode at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. And while you're there, be sure to head to the blog to learn about our online birth classes too. See you next week, and remember, you can have an even better birth no matter how you deliver.